Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, more commonly referred to as ADHD, is a neurodevelopmental disorder that is characterized by a collection of specific symptoms in attention, distractibility, impulsivity and hyperactivity that appear atypical in comparison to their peers and cause significant difficulties.
ADHD has historically been thought of as a childhood disorder. However, it has become more clear that many children don't grow out of it, and ADHD can continue to cause significant problems for an individual into adulthood.
For the purpose of this evaluation, we will be discussing the development pathways of ADHD in specific focus on education, social development and the developmental of resilience. A neurodevelopmental disorder that impacts a child's ability to control impulses, organise thoughts and belongings, manage time and can even get in the way of managing relationships, which can bring forward numerous problems for children during their educational years of life. 94% of parents are concerned that ADHD will threaten their child's academic success. Children diagnosed with ADHD may struggle within the education system due to struggling with concentrating on work, working within groups, spacing out during the school day and building relationships with teachers and other students, as they may come across to be distracting, unruly and often they are frustrated with the routine of the classroom. The optimal conditions for academic success require that students come to school physically, mentally and emotionally available for learning. In other words, being ready to learn means that when arriving to a start of school day and throughout the entirety of the school day, they are in control of their physical bodies, thoughts and feelings, which is often proven difficult for children with ADHD. Despite the concern about ADHD, there are relatively few studies of its effects on children's educational outcomes. Henning M. and colleagues, 2015, found the level of ADHD symptoms was associated with low levels and less growth in decoding speed and text comprehension. Furthermore, individual differences in changes in ADHD symptoms and reading performance were negatively associated. These results indicated commonalities in the development of ADHD symptomatology and reading achievement throughout a child's primary school age. Another study by Monet, Bigres and Guy 2015 found their results supported the idea that preschool children with ADHD have weaker inhibition capacities and that this weakness could be common to disruptive behaviour disorders. Executive function deficits have yet to be demonstrated convincingly in children with these disorders, as only a few studies have reported these. The presence of executive function weaknesses in children has often been contested on account of the high comorbidity between DBD and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Previous literature has discussed the themes of attentional function within the disorder. Wildin, 2005, points out that whereas many regulatory functions, including alertness or arousal, appear to be impaired in ADHD, demonstrating basic attention deficits in selection or orienting functions in the disorder has proven difficult. However, Nick 2005 points out that further scrutiny is needed. Several issues remain to be addressed in the field with regards to attentional function in ADHD, such as the psychometric problem of differential task difficulty and differential deficit, value of complex versus simple tasks, and effects of perceptual load. Overall, the limited research on educational attainment in children with ADHD opens a need for research in the field. However, from the research that has been conducted, we can conclude that children with ADHD struggle with a day-to-day classroom routine with tasks such as reading and text comprehension, but further research is needed to have the ability to make a clear connection between the disorder and a child's educational attainment.
Throughout our lives, we develop social skills to help us communicate with others. ADHD affects 3 to 7% of children, and of these, approximately 82% have an impaired social development. This means they struggle with communication, and making a bond with another child can prove difficult. Within the 85% of children, with the disorder that have an abnormal social development. Both males and females are affected equally by the impairment and shows no gender differences. With vast knowledge surrounding impaired social functioning, children with ADHD are often at the forefront of this research, focusing mainly on those who attend school, typically during an individual's childhood. Hauser in 2007 said that social interaction with peers is crucial for children of a young age, regardless whether or not the child has ADHD. In another study, Hauser and colleagues found that children with ADHD struggled with peer relations and have had fewer reciprocated friendships. This is a recurring theme amongst other studies, showing that individuals with ADHD are often a part of the rejected population within their school life. Similar to this, under 1% of children with the disorder are considered to be the popular group of their peers. This could be due to the fact that once a child with ADHD is rejected, it is hard to reinstate any social hierarchy. Also, this high number of rejection from peers towards a child with the disorder could be accounted for as those have the label ADHD. They suffer more negatively at school than those with impaired social interaction who don't carry this label. Barkley in 1997 and Landua et al. In 1998 found social impairment in children with ADHD can primarily be linked to impulsivity and inattention. Many other behaviors have been found to associate peer rejection with ADHD and other behavioral disorders. Behaviors such as aggression, hyperactivity, poor emotion regulation, immaturity, as well as the previous two stated impulsivity and inattention. All these behaviors can be used to characterize peer rejection in children with ADHD. Although there has been a lot of studies surrounding social development in children with ADHD, treatment is very hard. Typically, both medication and therapy are used to reduce the behaviors, such as hyperactivity. With the use of this treatment, the individual will become more calm and increase concentration. However, many studies around the idea of peer rejection and an impaired social functioning have focused on school children. Many individuals with ADHD grow up with all of these behaviors and continue that into adulthood. Friedman et al. In 2003 noticed an increase in divorce rates and frequent job loss. This could suggest that even in adulthood, some individuals with ADHD struggle with behaviors and social interaction. Overall, the majority of children with ADHD have an impaired social development and struggle with peer interaction. Further research is needed on how these interactions affect the everyday lives of individuals who have the disorder into adulthood, other than jobs and divorce rates, as primarily the focus is around school children.
Many studies have documented poor adult outcomes among children with ADHD, such as mental health problems, substance abuse disorders, low educational attainment, and criminal convictions. This doesn't, however, doom all those with ADHD to a life of maladjustment. A focused look reveals wide heterogeneity with considerable variations and a large proportion avoiding long-term negative effects. Indeed, a small body of research literature suggests there is a subgroup of individuals with ADHD who function well in some domains despite impairments in others. Longitudinal studies carried out by Barkley et al. 2006 and Kurian et al. 2013 followed individuals with ADHD into young adulthood and showed that between 20 and 50% successfully pursued a college education. In the last decade, there's been a growing body of research to support the existence of factors that protect adolescents and young adults with ADHD from experiencing negative outcomes and promoting resilience. There is a strong evidence to suggest that family factors can play a part in developing resilience. Positive parenting and positive effects of nurturing behaviours have found to be significant, especially in the context of early childhood, which promote promoted resilience against comorbid conduct problems. However, for older children and adolescents, the strongest positive effect on resilience was identified as family cohesion. The most compelling evidence, however, is in the social community factors, where friendship and peer acceptance protect and promote resilience in developing a positive adjustment. In the area of individual factors, positive effects of goal-directed solitary play for girls with ADHD were found to buffer against depression. However, in a follow-up longitudinal study, the same variable actually predicted increased internalising and externalising behaviours and substance use. Essentially, the central argument is that there are identifiable actions and conditions that can promote and protect resilience in young people with ADHD. Although there is compelling evidence to suggest that several factors in the course of development may have protective and promotive influences, there are a number of limitations within the research. Current literature is scant in sample sizes, and methodology was mixed, with some of the most robust literature making use of longitudinal studies, whilst others took a cross-sectional approach, which limited findings to a specific point in time, neglecting developments and adaptations over time and age. Current research in this area does not provide any information on the promotive and protective effects of these factors in the majority of the adult population. Some of the research reviewed did not clearly specify aims or hypotheses related to promotive and protective mechanisms in the context of ADHD. Indeed, while some studies did well to follow a developmental psychopathological framework, others focused on promotive and protective effects within school and community cohorts in relation to ADHD. Because the links between resilience and ADHD are in the infancy, future research could extend the current evidence. One of the weaknesses of existing research is that the evidence is weighted more towards promotional effects. Protective factors are much less researched. By utilising large-scale longitudinal designs and expanding the sample age grouping, the research could determine whether the findings show improved resilience in later adulthood. Finally, there is a need for findings at all levels to be formalised to enable prevention and support strategies to be developed and implemented at various stages during a young person's development to guard against negative outcomes.
Overall, this presentation has discussed educational attainment, social development, and the development of resilience in ADHD. Although there is strong evidence, especially during early development, of the implication of ADHD symptoms, more research is needed within other developmental stages, especially into adulthood. Throughout the 5 weeks that I have had to complete this assignment, I managed to keep within the deadline and stick to a tight time schedule to be able to complete the work and upload it onto YouTube and Blackboard. However, the thing that I struggled with most was the group work. I often find it difficult to work within a group as I prefer to work independently. During this ICA, my attitude towards group work has improved, but it needs further improvement as I think the ability to work within a group is something potential employers will look for.
This year, during the duration of this assignment, I found the most difficult thing to be the organisation, and working around everyone's timetable for uni and work left little time to get together to work on the presentation. Also, with organisation, this assignment was more difficult than previous assignments because of the short time scale and the added pressure of creating a recording and having it all pieced together ready to upload for the deadline. It required vast amounts of teamwork and focus and computer skills to be able to put it all together.
Initially, I found the synthesising table very useful in helping to draw together papers in my chosen area of development of deviant behaviour in adolescents with young adults with ADHD. This proved to be a very large and very large and complex. I became overwhelmed by the sheer content of information, and I struggled to keep my focus and produce a coherent plan for the critical discussion. In the process of destroying a good part of the rainforest, I came across a relatively new area of research within developmental psychology, focusing on the development of resilience within individuals with ADHD, which prompted a more positive aspect, hence the change in topic. Within the context of my difficulties with being able to effectively synthesize research, I believe with practice the tool will become a valuable asset in developing my skills in this area. I also need to develop skills in keeping calm when panic sets in, as I tend to lose my ability to think clearly. However, in getting back on track, I found the university guidelines helpful in outlining key questions to ask in analysing research.